Good evening and welcome to Gravitas. I'm Palki Sharma. Let's get started. $1.8 trillion, that is the cost of peace. Or that's how much countries spend on defense in the name of securing peace. Every country is part of this global defense market. It's either a seller or a buyer. For the longest time, India was the largest importer, but New Delhi quickly transitioned into a defense producer and a reliable exporter. At least 3 countries have recently inked defense deals with India or are in the process of doing so. India aims to export weapons worth 36,000 crores by 2025. There is a global appetite for arms. The fast-changing global order is working in favor of India's defense industry. Tonight, we'll break down the story for you. We'll bring you the headlines, the numbers, and examples of India's smart marketing. We love romanticizing diplomacy and peace, whether it's Ukraine or North Korea or the African Sahel. We say peace is better than conflict. And it's true. But the fact is that peace comes at a huge cost. Like the Romans said, if you want peace, prepare for war. Every country is doing exactly that. They're either producing their own weapons or importing them from abroad. This trade has created one of the biggest markets in the world, the weapons market. Guess how much it's worth? Almost $1.8 trillion. That's how much countries spend on defense, $1.8 trillion. India was always a buyer in this market. We bought from Russia, we bought from France, but we never really produced top-class weapons locally. In the last 5 years, India was the largest arms importer in the world. Total share, almost 11% of all imports. But the trajectory is interesting. In the same period, the last 5 years, India's arms imports actually fell 21%. Why do you think that's the case? Because India is moving towards local production. It is turning from a buyer into a seller. Let me give you 3 recent examples. Number 1 is Malaysia. They currently use Russian Sukhoi fighter jets. But the fleet is facing 2 problems. A, it is getting too old, and B, no spare parts because of sanctions on Russia. So Malaysia wants to replace their fighter jets, and their top choice is India's Tejas fighter jet. Now first, some quick facts. The Tejas is a single-engine supersonic fighter jet. It is manufactured by the HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. The company's chairman says it is almost a done deal. Unless there is some political shift, Malaysia will buy India's Tejas. The other options are China's JF-17, South Korea's FA-50, and Russia's MiG-35. So why did Malaysia pick the Indian jet? Because India sweetened the deal. They offered to set up a maintenance facility in Malaysia. This facility will repair the existing fleet of Sukhois. Now, this is an important thing about arms trade. It's a buyer's market. Countries are spending millions of dollars. They have so many options and deals. So you better offer a competitive deal. In Malaysia's case, India seems to have done that. We are not sure how many jets Malaysia is buying, but they're sending a team of officials to India. Our second example is Egypt. And here too, India is sweetening the deal. Egypt is in the market for light combat jets, and the Tejas fits the bill here too. It faces stiff competition though. So India is offering to set up factories in Egypt, basically produce the jets in their country. And this is an interesting offer. Egypt gets the foreign investment, they get the jobs, and they also get the jets. India, on the other hand, scores another defense deal, plus a factory in Egypt is strategic. It can supply to West Asia, to Northern Africa, all the big conflict zones. Last we checked, Egypt was still considering this deal with India. Example number 3 is Vietnam, another Southeast Asian country. Last month, India and Vietnam signed an important agreement. It covers mutual logistics support. What does that mean? It means military sharing. India and Vietnam can use each other's bases for repairs, or for refueling, or replenishments. India has already supplied 12 high-speed boats to Vietnam, plus a $500 million credit line. This money will be used to bolster Vietnam's defenses. Reports say they could be interested in the BrahMos missiles too. The Philippines has already bought them. Vietnam could be next. So those are the examples. Now let's look at the numbers. In 2015, India exported weapons worth 1,900 crore rupees. Compare that to 2021. More than 11,000 crore rupees. That's nearly 6 times more in 8 years. And the government's target is even more ambitious. 36,000 crore rupees by 2025. That is India's target. I know it seems impossible, but global factors are aligning perfectly for India. For starters, the war in Ukraine. Russia is one of the biggest arms exporters in the world. They make up 19% of all exports. But Putin's war is not good marketing for his weapons. Russian tanks are breaking down. Their missiles are missing targets. So many countries are looking elsewhere for weapons. And don't forget, availability is a big issue. Russia cannot provide new shipments or spare parts at the moment. They need all hands on deck in Ukraine. So Russia's loss could be India's gain. Secondly, the militarization of the Indo-Pacific, specifically Southeast Asia. I'm talking about the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia. These countries face Chinese aggression on a daily basis. So they have very specific military demands, affordability and reliability. And India can offer them both. That too without political fallouts. You see, both Europe and America were imperialist powers in Southeast Asia. Buying weapons from them may not sit well with the people. For example, imagine Vietnam buying fighter jets from America, the same country that dropped napalm on their people. India, on the other hand, is an Asian success story, a former colony herself. So the global arms market is ripe for India to capitalize on, to make some big bucks. But a lot depends on smart deal making and marketing. And we'll be tracking all of that for you. Indian weapons can help counter another challenge. They can help in containing a more aggressive and assertive China. The next war will be fought on the high seas. Many experts have made this prophecy, and China seems to be working hard to make sure it comes true. China is raising the threat of another conflict, and that too in 3 theaters: the East China Sea, the Taiwan Straits, and the South China Sea. And tonight we'll tell you about China's latest moves. First, in the East China Sea. It was a tense Monday for Japan. Early this morning, they spotted a Chinese warship. It was near what Japan calls the Senkaku Islands. For the first time in 4 years, a Chinese ship has been spotted there, and this is a major escalation. And we'll tell you why. First, let's look at the islands that we're talking about. Both Japan and China stake claim to them. Japan calls them the Senkaku Islands. China calls them the Diaoyu Islands. These are a group of uninhabited islands in the East China Sea. And this is a long-standing dispute. So why is China's action now worrying? 2 reasons. Number 1, such transgressions are becoming too frequent. And number 2, China is not alone in doing this. China has a partner, Russia. Moscow is supporting the Chinese Navy. A Russian Navy ship was spotted in the same waters this morning. Meaning, Russia and China are working together to challenge Japan, and this is not the first time. In the month of May, Tokyo had hosted the Quad Summit. When the summit began, Chinese and Russian fighter jets flew near Japan. They conducted a joint patrol during the summit. They flew fighter jets near Tokyo when heads of 4 countries, India, Japan, the US and Australia, were meeting in that city. And now the Russian Navy is collaborating with the PLA in the East China Sea. Japan has protested this incursion. I have their statement with me. This is what the Japanese statement says. The Senkaku Islands are an inherent part of our territory historically and under international law. We will respond firmly and calmly to resolutely defend our territory, territorial waters and airspace. That's what Japan says, but how will they respond? By bolstering their defenses, Japan is developing hypersonic missiles. Later this month, their Ministry of Defense will conduct a flight test. They will test an engine, the kind that can be used to build a hypersonic missile. And this is significant because hypersonic weapons can dictate the future of warfare. They can travel fast, and in some instances, they can escape radars too. Japan does not want to be left behind because China is making significant progress in this direction. China has tested hypersonic weapon systems multiple times already. It wants to add this weapon to its arsenal quickly, and Japan is playing catch-up. It needs an effective deterrent, especially after what happened last week. 2 Chinese ships sailed around East China Sea for 64 hours. You heard that right, 64 hours. Chinese ships were sailing around disputed islands for almost 3 days. And these were Coast Guard ships. They came within 3 kilometers of the Senkaku Islands. That's a serious provocation. This is the longest incursion of its kind in a decade. So that covers the East China Sea. Then we come to Taiwan. It has been battling repeated Chinese incursions. Last week, Chinese aircraft violated Taiwan's air defense zone. There were 29 planes this time, and in Taiwan too, China is breaking records. This was the largest Chinese incursion since the end of May. It's the same template as Japan. China is committing repeated violations, and each event is more grave than the previous one. In Japan, China is using its ships. In Taiwan, it is deploying its airplanes. That's the only difference. And I have some numbers for you. In 2020, Chinese warplanes entered Taiwan's air defense zone around 380 times. In 2021, 969 times, almost 3 times more. What about this year, 2022? 465 incursions and counting. That's about 50% of last year's record. And that record may be broken. The numbers speak for themselves. Then we come to the South China Sea, the third theatre of conflict. Chinese military activities are intensifying here too. Beijing has already conducted 4 military drills there. The South China Sea is one of the most dangerous flashpoints in the world. China claims ownership of this entire region. 5 other players contest China's claims: Brunei, Malaysia, the Philippines, Taiwan, and Vietnam. These are the other contenders in the South China Sea. They feel threatened by China's recent moves, so the West is coming to their support. A major military exercise is set to begin on Wednesday. It's called the Rim of the Pacific exercise. This is being called the world's biggest naval drill. That's because 27 countries will participate. The US Navy will lead these drills. Who else is taking part? Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, the Philippines, India. Basically all the major regional powers. The aim of this drill is to showcase power and to contain China together. Turning to Europe and the big story there, Denmark's capital was shocked by a shooting incident on Sunday. It was the first such attack since 2015. A lone gunman stormed a shopping mall and unleashed a wave of violence. He killed 3 people and injured 4 others. And the timing could not have been worse. Denmark was playing host to 2 major events, the first 3 stages of Tour de France and a much-awaited concert by singer Harry Styles. The concert was slated to take place just a few kilometers away from the attack site. Our next report tells you how the incident unfolded.
It was supposed to be another lazy Sunday in Copenhagen. People were out shopping. Families were enjoying the sun. It was the perfect ending to an eventful week. Denmark had just hosted the first 3 stages of the Tour de France. After all that excitement, people just wanted a boring old Sunday. But fate had something else planned. Around afternoon, chaos gripped this shopping mall in downtown Copenhagen. Multiple gunshots echoed around the building. CCTV cameras captured this gunman on the prowl, rifle in hand, ammunition tucked away in his jacket. Pretty soon, instincts kicked in. The mall goers made a desperate dash for the exit.
So we didn't know what to do, so we ran, people were guiding us towards the exit sign, and then we ran up the roof and were stuck there for a while, and then people were panicking all over the place and people crying. And
not everybody was lucky enough to escape. The shooting rampage claimed the lives of 3 people, 2 12-year-old Danes and 1 47-year-old Russian. 4 others were injured in the attack. The Fields is one of the biggest malls in Scandinavia. On Sunday, it was especially busy. Just a few kilometers away, British singer Harry Styles was scheduled to hold a concert. Excited teens had come to the mall to kill some time, perhaps grab a bite before heading to the concert. For parents who heard the news, it was moments of pure terror.
It was terrible because she was calling me and I heard in the background as she said that, she's two boom, boom, something like that. I could hear it. And so she got out on the opposite side of the arena and escaped the wave down to the block area with apartments. She was so devastated about what happened.
As the mall goers rushed out, the police arrived on the scene. Within 13 minutes, they apprehended the shooter. He has been identified as a 22-year-old ethnic Dane. The authorities also launched a full sweep of the neighboring areas, but the assessment is the gunman was working alone. He had mental health issues and appears to have chosen his victims at random. For Denmark, Sunday was a rude shock. The Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, called for the country to stand together. Yet, the shockwaves of this attack will linger for long.
There is nothing in our investigation or the documents we have reviewed or the things we have found or the witnesses' statements we have gotten that can substantiate that this is an act of terrorism.
Denmark is amongst the toughest places to own a gun. You can buy one for hunting or sports, but that too requires rigorous background checks. And what about threat perceptions? The government believes there is a serious risk of terror attacks, both from militant Islamists and right-wing extremists. But for now, there is no indication of racial or terror motives. But the investigation could change that. It could answer the questions haunting ordinary Danish citizens. How did a mentally ill patient get his hands on a rifle? What drove him to unleash this horror?
Most of the world celebrates Pride Month in June, but in Germany, July is the big deal. 3 important LGBTQ events are being organized: the Lesbian and Gay Festival, the Dyke March, and the Christopher Street Day. So July is effectively Pride Month in Germany. And this mosque wanted to support the community, so they hung the pride flag outside the building. The question is, how important is this gesture? Well, symbolically, it's huge. Islam has never accepted homosexual relations. In fact, the Hadith strongly condemns it. Most Muslim nations have used this interpretation to crack down on LGBTQ rights. Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, Iran, Brunei, Nigeria, the UAE, Yemen, all these countries carry the death penalty for homosexual activity. So in that context, what happened in Berlin is huge. But does it change the real world outlook? Unfortunately, it doesn't. This particular mosque describes itself as liberal. They have a history of such reforms. For example, men and women are permitted to pray together here. It's a big no anywhere else in the world. They also have a female imam, again, not permitted anywhere else. So this mosque does not represent a broad Muslim opinion. It represents a tiny progressive opinion. In fact, some Muslims have condemned this gesture. They say LGBTQ organizations funded the whole display. And this has always been a feature of pride campaigns. Activists take one step forward, religions take 2 steps back. Let me show you a map of the countries that have criminalized homosexuality. You could be punished for being gay. Now look at where these countries are located. Northern Africa and West Asia, which means religion is the driving force. Islam is being used to justify persecution of the LGBTQ community. And don't get me wrong, Islam is not the only religion doing so. Most religions have refused to accept homosexuality. At best, they just ignore it. At worst, they punish it. But elsewhere, civil laws have overruled religion, like in Germany or France, India, Japan. All these countries have decriminalized same-sex relations. But what about same-sex marriage? Only 31 countries in the world permit gay couples to get married. Only 31. Is there any way around this problem? Normally, you would depend on international pressure. After all, gay rights are human rights. But good luck getting the world to sanction Saudi Arabia or the UAE. These countries are too rich to be sanctioned, and they know it. But as things stand, it may be the only way. Countries must separate religion and state because, let's face it, religions take time to accept anything new. sometimes decades, sometimes even centuries. But LGBTQ rights cannot wait that long, and Muslim countries must realize this. Just think about it. Islamic law does not just prohibit homosexuality, it also prohibits nuclear weapons. But that did not stop Pakistan from developing nukes. It's not stopping Iran from doing the same. So the fact is, this is not just about religion, it's also about politics. Governments feel cracking down on gay rights is a populist move. The people must tell them it is not. Only then will regimes embrace LGBTQ rights. So the mosque in Berlin is sending the right signals. It is showing that religion can embrace change without collapsing. Now, it's the 4th of July. On this day in 1776, America adopted the Declaration of Independence. Every year, 4th of July is celebrated with picnics, feasts and fireworks, and this year is no different. So what exactly is America celebrating this year? Sure, America is independent on paper, but are Americans really free? Let's look at this declaration, the Declaration of Independence. This is what it says. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Wonderful. Now look at two headlines. A 10-year-old rape victim is forced to travel for abortion. US cops rain bullets on a 25-year-old unarmed black man. The man dies. This is the state of present-day America. The country has been independent for 246 years, but there is no equality, shrinking liberty, and eroding basic rights like health care. The 10-year-old girl in Ohio was raped, and American law failed to protect her. It then denied her basic health care. The child needed to terminate her pregnancy, but her home state would not let her. Ohio bans abortion post 6 weeks, just like many other American states do, and 6 weeks is before most women even realize that they're pregnant. Ohio made no exception even for a rape victim. It disregarded the fact that this victim is a minor, just 10 years old, a child herself. She had to go to Indiana to get basic health care. She had to cross borders for a procedure that should have ideally been available at her nearest hospital. And this is just one story, but it represents over 166 million American women. This story speaks about a nation in crisis. This is what happens when a country's top court seizes your constitutional rights instead of protecting them. What happened to the girl in Ohio can happen to minor girls and women across America. 22 American states have either already rolled back abortion rights or plan to do so. 22 American states are denying women basic freedom. So what exactly is America celebrating today? What's the use of this independence if it takes just one ruling to lose control over your own body? Top courts in independent countries are supposed to be more in tune with the times. Just look at India. Last week, the Bombay High Court passed an order. It granted liberty to a minor girl to undergo abortion. She was 16 weeks pregnant, and she too was a victim of sexual abuse. In 2019, India's top court ruled that reproductive choice is an inseparable part of a woman's personal liberty. India got independence 75 years ago. Even young countries like Singapore respect women's choice and liberty, but grand old America only talks liberty with a big statue. It talks pursuit of happiness, but does very little to protect either. Even its president, Joe Biden, feigns helplessness. This is the state of America. So what exactly are Americans celebrating today? While the 4th of July fireworks light up American skies, police is opening fire on black citizens, unarmed black citizens. This happened on the 27th of June. A 25-year-old black man was chased and killed by the US police. What was his fault? A minor traffic violation. 8 police officers chased him. for a traffic violation. They fired 60 rounds of bullets. The black man was unarmed, but the police gunned him down. His name was Jayland Walker. His name was also George Floyd, Daunte Wright, Andre Hill. The name did not matter, you see, only the skin color did. These were all black men who were killed by the US police. Jayland Walker was the latest victim, killed in the days leading up to the 4th of July. Black lives do not matter in independent America. Black lives, black men, are over 3 times more likely to be killed in a police encounter. America in 2022 is going back in time. It has been colonized by conservatives, hijacked by racists. America has not yet been liberated from prejudice. Women are not free in today's America. Old white men dictate what rights women should have over their own body. There is no space for equality and no regard for the declaration signed in 1776. So I come back to the question, what exactly are Americans celebrating today? Forget about rights. Americans are struggling at airports too. The 4th of July weekend is a great opportunity to take a long holiday in the US. But air travel in America this time was a complete nightmare. Thousands of flights were either cancelled or delayed without notice. Same with Europe. There was chaos at the airports. Planes are leaving without luggage. Passengers are losing their bags. So if you're considering traveling right now, you may want to watch this report first.
This is what a travel nightmare looks like.
Bags everywhere. As far as the eye can see, bags, bags, bags. Nobody can find their bag.
This is London's Heathrow Airport. There was chaos at Germany's Frankfurt Airport too. From Amsterdam to Dublin, even Sydney and Toronto, travellers are struggling everywhere. They are facing the perfect storm. Flights are being cancelled or delayed without notice, and major airports are struggling with staff shortages. Travellers are returning to airports in record numbers. The global aviation industry can't keep up. In America, there was serious chaos. More than 1,000 flights were cancelled. The situation was worse on Saturday. More than 2,000 flights were cancelled that day. Even the most reputed airlines have run into problems. 12,000 flights of American Airlines were disrupted this weekend. What was the reason? Pilot schedules went haywire after a glitch in the airline's computer system. Thankfully, American Airlines managed to fix the system in time. Unlike EasyJet in Europe, the company's chief operating officer has quit. Last month, EasyJet cancelled about 11,000 flights. The chaos at the airline continued into the holiday season. EasyJet has cut about 10,000 flights now. It lost over 70% of its bookings. The customers switched to other flights within 24 hours of their departure. Why is the global aviation industry in turmoil? Several airlines have blamed staff shortages for this mess. But the fact is, they were not prepared for the holiday surge. Staff shortage has been a long-running problem in aviation. The pandemic made it worse. During the lockdowns, the airlines let go of thousands of workers. By September 2021, the global aviation workforce had reduced by 2.3 million. The travel industry is now making a roaring recovery. There is an uptick in passenger bookings. But airlines still don't have enough staff to put their planes back in the air. Experts say the chaos could continue in the coming weeks. Staff shortages are hitting Indian airlines too. Indigo is Asia's biggest budget airline. On Saturday, more than 50% of Indigo flights were delayed. Reports say many employees had called in sick. There is speculation that they had gone to attend interviews at a rival airline. But these claims are yet to be verified. Indian regulators have launched an investigation.
Can climate change kill you? Well, guess what? It can. Climate change killed 6 people this weekend in Italy alone. The tragedy was caught on camera. Take a look.
Oh, ma che brutta cosa. Ma che roba.
What you saw was the collapse of the largest glacier in the Italian Alps. It is called the Marmolada Glacier. Here's where it is located on the map. And this is what it looked like a day before the tragedy. Breathtaking, isn't it? This part of Italy has been battling a heat wave. On Saturday, temperatures touched 10 degrees higher, which might sound normal, even pleasant to you. But in this part of the world, 10 degrees Celsius is way above normal. The glacier could not withstand this heat. A day later, it collapsed. The ice came tumbling down, bringing along with it snow and rocks. The avalanche affected a popular mountain trail. Hikers were trapped. At least 6 have been killed, and some others have been injured. Reports say foreign nationals have died too. Authorities say they did not see this coming. But that's the thing with climate change. Not many people see it coming or saw it coming. Climate change was considered a problem of the next generation. But just look at the world around you. There is climate change written all over it. Even the most developed countries have not been spared. Australia, for example, it is at the sharp end of climate change. Several parts of Australia received about a month's worth of rain. 30 days of rain in less than 3 days. And this is what it looks like. Sydney, Australia's largest city, is tempest-tossed. The city's main dam spilled on Sunday. Floodwaters have surrounded houses. Building equipment is scattered on the road. Agricultural fields are flooded. Emergency services have conducted more than 100 rescues and at least 3,000 SOS calls have been made in the last 24 hours. Many are kayaking to safety. Some ponies and farm animals have been moved to drier lands, but not everyone has been lucky. In Sydney, a man fell out of his kayak. His body was later fished out of the Sydney harbour. As we speak, some of Sydney's beaches have been completely washed away. In fact, the sea is spewing foam into the city. Just look at this. The suburb is almost underwater. Roads are flooded. Cars have drowned. Houses have been cut off. At least 30,000 people in New South Wales have been asked to evacuate. This is not Australia's first flood, but this flood is being called life-threatening.
If you were safe in 2021, do not assume you will be safe tonight. This is a rapidly evolving situation, and we could very well see areas impacted that have never experienced flooding before.
Climate change, like I said at the start, is deadly. It killed at least 12 people in the South China Sea this weekend. A tropical storm called Chaba was passing through Hong Kong. It created strong waves in the sea, which went on to hit a Chinese engineering vessel. The ship was operating off Hong Kong. It had 30 crew members on board. The vessel broke into half. 12 bodies have been found so far, and a few crew members have been rescued. Just look at these images. This is how scary climate change can be. Hong Kong received heavy rain this weekend, again courtesy Typhoon Chaba, which finally went on to make landfall in mainland China. It overwhelmed an already inundated region. This is what climate change has done to southern China. On your screen are visuals from the Guangdong province. The typhoon and floods have reduced parts of this province to rubble. China has been battling record floods for almost a month now. The country has not revealed the number of casualties, but reports say at least a dozen people have been killed by climate change. From Italy to Australia to China, it's the same story. People across continents are losing lives to changing weather patterns. Climate change is here, and it's a global reality. And it will come for us too, sooner or later. So this should be a hashtag Monday motivation for all world leaders to prioritize climate action, leave wars alone, leave politics aside and stop climate change. And finally, space travel. If you're a space geek, I'm sure you must have imagined yourself living on Mars or traveling to the moon for a trip at the very least. A holiday in space could soon be a reality for a lot of people. But once you get there, you might need a workout regime. Some scientists recently conducted a study on astronauts, and their findings are revealing. Astronauts can lose a decade's worth of bone mass when they live in space. Here's more.
Normal cover coming open.
Spaceflight. It is one of the most significant achievements of mankind. Earlier, space travel was reserved for a select few. Not anymore. Commercial space travel is opening up. But is our body ready to live in space? Yes and no. Here's why. Space travel changes your bones. One long trip to space can lead to significant bone loss. Researchers at the University of Calgary studied 17 astronauts. 14 candidates were men, 3 were women. They had all spent at least 4 months in space. When they came back, their bodies were not the same. A 6-month-long trip can lead to a decade's worth of long-term bone loss. Recovery takes time. Astronauts only recover 50% of their bone strength 1 year after they return to Earth. What about astronauts who spend less than 6 months in space? They can make a full recovery within a year. What causes the bone density loss? It is the lack of gravity. Bones are a living organ. When they are active, they are constantly remodeling. But without any gravity, they lose strength. Is there a solution? There is one: more exercise. Scientists suggest those staying in space for longer periods should lift more weights. As it is, astronauts follow a strict fitness regimen in space. According to NASA, they must exercise for at least 2.5 hours per day. The most common exercise is running on a treadmill. An astronaut needs to spend at least an hour on it. They must also spend time on a weightlifting machine. The Club of Space Travelers is an exclusive one. Just 600 humans have traveled to outer space so far. A little over 250 have been on the International Space Station. These numbers could increase dramatically in the years ahead. Commercial space travel is now within sight. Tickets are being sold for a trip to space now. Each costs upwards of $450,000. Space is now accessible, but it will take a lot more effort to prepare our bodies to live there. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And now let's tell you what else is making news across the world. This is time for Gravitas Global Headlines.
Ukraine's forces have withdrawn from the bombed-out city of Lysychansk, prompting Russia to claim full control of the eastern Luhansk region. But President Zelensky has vowed to regain the lost territory. Pope Francis dismissed suggestions of resignation, saying in an interview that rumors of him suffering from a serious illness were court gossip. The Pope also said he hopes to be able to go to Moscow and Kiev as soon as possible after a visit to Canada later this month. British Army fell victim to a major hacking incident over the weekend. Both their YouTube and Twitter accounts were targeted to promote cryptocurrency and NFTs. The hacking lasted for a short period of time, and the army soon regained control of its handles. The authorities have ordered a full investigation into the hacking incident. Protesters gathered in Ohio's Akron following the release of footage showing police officers shooting an unarmed black man, Jayland Walker. Walker's body was found with over 60 gunshot wounds after he fled a traffic stop last week. As President Erdogan's unconventional economic policies continue to take a toll, inflation in Turkey in June soared to an annual rate of 78.6%. the highest in 24 years. Chinese developer Sharma Group has failed to make payment on a $1 billion bond, one of the biggest such defaults so far this year in the country's troubled property sector. China placed 1.7 million people under lockdown in central Anhui province, where nearly 300 new infections were reported. At least a dozen, including several students, were killed after a private bus rolled off a cliff in the Kulu district in India's northern state of Himachal Pradesh. Rescue workers fear the death toll may rise. Novak Djokovic has stayed on course for a fourth straight Wimbledon title by reaching the quarterfinals. The top seed beat Dutchman Tim van Rijthoven in 4 sets to extend his winning streak to 25 matches at the All England club. He will now face 10th seed Jannik Sinner in the last 8. Cristiano Ronaldo missed training with Manchester United on Monday due to family reasons, just days after the Portugal star told the club he wanted to leave. The 37-year-old believes that United will not challenge for the big titles under new manager Erik ten Hag.
With that, it's a wrap. We're leaving you with Gravitas images. Thanks very much for watching.
بس لما تظهر عقد مش على طول بيسأل بس انت لازم يكون عندك 916